Educational attainment is outrageously important in Acadiana, and I'm just frank about that because we are 48th out of 50 in this country and from a state perspective in terms of educational attainment, and our region, Acadiana, is 5th out of 8 regions. We cannot prosper, we cannot take care of ourselves and take care of our families unless people are educated and in jobs that can sustain them and sustain their families. And so we do everything from adult basic education, where we take individuals who don't even have a high school diploma and we educate them and skill them up so that they can go out and be productive individuals in the workplace with a career that really matters. And I think as all of us focus on that and think that that's the most important thing that we can do together, we raise all of us up, we build the economy in our region, and hopefully set the stage for what should be the model for our state.
I believe educational attainment is critically important for not only St. Landry Parish schools, but the whole community of St. Landry Parish. It's critical that we have those partnerships with our community, with our economic development partners, and also, more importantly, with our parents. So that attainment is going to not only grow St. Landry Parish, but we're going to take us to a new level. So we're going to continue to work really hard in producing quality citizens and quality students for St. Landry Parish schools.
My education journey, of course, starts at a young age like everyone else. I did the French immersion program up until high school, and once I got in high school, I went to Northside. I was enrolled in the legal academy, and that's where Gear Up really started taking a big role in my life. So we did a lot of college tours throughout it. We had college application week. We had a lot of ACT prep that was offered to us. So I was able to be more prepared throughout my entire high school career. That was able to prepare me for my collegiate career when I decided to go to college.
Really, I struggled academic-wise in the 5th grade. I actually ended up leaving public school because I had trouble keeping up with the other kids. A lot of what was involved in that was not just I couldn't focus and that I had trouble understanding the material, but I also struggled from a physical aspect where I suffered from chronic asthma and a lot of allergic allergies that kept me out and kept me missing school quite frequently. It wasn't until 2013, when I was a lot more mature, that I wanted to go back and to try to earn that education that I had, lost my chances so many years ago. I enrolled into the adult ed program where I was trying to earn my high set. But through another series of events, a family member, my grandfather, fell ill, and I had to put that on hold for another period longer to take care of things at home. But in 2016, I came back at full force. Within 3 months, I finished and I obtained my high set. And some of the fine staff there helped me transition, where I got a chance to get hands-on experience with work, and also helped me with encouraging me to enroll in college. I just graduated and I am now transferring to a 4-year university to focus in management.
Thinking back when I was a financial analyst in the oil field in 2016, I believe it was, the oil field had a downturn and eventually I was part of the layoffs. And it was at that point in time that I decided to explore other opportunities and find something that would both provide me with stability and fulfillment from what I did. And it was at that point that I found nursing, and it felt a little awkward having to retake prerequisite classes and even apply for the program. There was no guarantee, but in the end it was worth it. I'm here as I am now, getting a lot of signs that I'm going in the right direction.
Educational attainment matters to everybody, no matter what your political bent, your social bent, because the fact is we all wear a number of hats. From a taxpayer perspective, it is clear, the research shows, the less education an individual has, the more they cost a community and a society in terms of social expenses. The less healthy they are, the more likely they are to be incarcerated, the more likely they are to have an addiction. So the less education that you have, the more likely you are to be a drain on an economy, not a value add to the economy. So there's a numbers goal for 55 by 25, and that is we want 55% of the adults to have a high quality credential or more by the year 2025. But the moral imperative is that we cannot leave people behind in the 21st century without an education, because they'll never be integrated in society. They'll never be able to offer us their own personal potential, and we owe it to each other to raise educational attainment as high as we possibly can.
And now, if you please welcome to the stage one of the students from the video, Jamila Dugat, who will introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jimmy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jamila Dugat, and I'm a proud graduate of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and a proud I graduated this past May in Organizational Communications. Okay, and also I'm a proud past recipient of the Lafayette Parish School System's Gear Up program. It is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Kim Hunter Reed, Louisiana's Commissioner for Higher Education. Dr. Reed's appointment in April of 2018 made her the only female in the country currently serving as a state higher education lead who has led higher ed in more than one state. Prior to being named commissioner, Dr. Reed served as an executive director of the Colorado Department of Higher Education. Working with the Colorado Commission on Higher Education, Dr. Reed led efforts to drive increased educational attainment and erase equity gaps. Prior to that, she served in President Barack Obama's administration as Deputy Undersecretary of the U.S. Department of Education. She has also served as Chief of Staff for the Louisiana Board of Regents and Executive Vice President of the University of Louisiana Systems, among other distinguished positions. Dr. Reed is a wife, a proud volleyball mom, and Louisiana's Chief Advocate for Talent Development. At the conclusion of her remarks, Dr. Reed will take questions from the audience. So without further ado, please welcome our keynote speaker, Louisiana Commissioner for Higher Education, Dr. Kim Hunter Reed.
Well, good afternoon. Oh, you guys can do better than that. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right. We are excited to be here. Thank you, Jamila, for that kind introduction and for the great things that I know are ahead of you. Her presence in this video, I think, reminds us each and every day that it's all about the students. It's all about educational attainment. It's all about opportunity. And so I'm honored, really, to join you today to have this conversation. I thank the leadership of One Acadiana and the staff for inviting me to be here. I am delighted to see so many great leaders here. Chancellor Harder, a woman who means business. Congratulations on that. My Commissioner of Higher Education, your President of the UL campus, Dr. Joe Salwa. He has been a real mentor for me, and I congratulate the campus on the National 2018 Diversity Award that you received as well. I'm delighted to see our education chair, Representative Nancy Landry, and all the business leaders, the K-12 leaders, the community leaders, people who care deeply about this community and want to know what we can do collectively to make it so much better. We stand with you, and we want you to know that we know that it's all about the students and all about attainment in this knowledge economy. Of all the civil rights for which the world has struggled and fought, the right to learn is undoubtedly the most fundamental, said W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, so many of you, I'm sure, know Du Bois, an African-American who was an influencer in his time, co-founded the NAACP, was the first African-American to earn a PhD from Harvard in the 1800s, someone who believed in opportunity for all. And when I think about his message about the right to learn, the fight to learn, I think that message has evolved today to the responsibility that we have to help people to learn in order to earn. Because the connectivity between those two things has become so sharp in our economy today. And so, first of all, I came to thank you. Thank you for addressing educational attainment and equity. Thank you for sending a clear message in this community that the status quo must fall away to a vision for opportunity for all. And thank you for making sure that this region is leading, as you so often do, on issues that matter. Increasing attainment, as you know, is tough work. It's not easy, but now is the time. You have the right players in this room, the right heart and commitment to this work. And failure for us in Louisiana, in Acadiana, in America is not an option. In today's environment, we need strong leaders who understand how all of this works, who understand the importance of equity and opportunity, who are committed to collaborating and innovating and educating to get the job done. People who understand the premium that we see today on a post-high school credential. I'm glad that the video was first before I had the opportunity to speak, because I do think that reflecting on the students is so important for us. Students, whether they're young or young at heart, you know where a credential can take a student. You see the transformation in your community every day. Self-doubt gives way to self-confidence. Lack of information gives way to ambition. Uncertainty and fear yields to accomplishment. All of this, the positive ripple effects that occur when students earn life-changing, work-relevant credentials, that fuels our work. But we also know what happens when education and access is limited. We see it in our communities every day as well. Families in the grips of poverty. Lack of education can lead to a life of struggle. For the working poor, struggle and dependence on assistance. Recently, the ALUS report came out for the state of Louisiana on the working poor in our state. The report stated that 48% of our working poor struggle to meet basic needs of health care and basic household needs as well. In Acadiana, in Louisiana, and Lafayette rather, that number is 44%. And so again, that gives us another proof point of why this gathering matters, why the conversation that will happen and the commitment that you are taking makes such a difference in this community and in this state. Because we know what happens when students fail. Too many students and adults drop out of school and drop into trouble. Our jails and prisons are filled with students who have had those challenges, who have chosen the wrong path, who've had failures in their education. But your focus can make a difference. We can remove the grips of intergenerational poverty, lack of hope, and lack of human capital. That too, this idea that opportunity can exist for all, that too fuels our work and our commitment and our determination and our focus on driving educational attainment. When we think about education and skills that are at a premium, and I know you had a TED Talk earlier today, and you talked a bit about that and what the business community has to say. We know in this community, in this state, in America, there are deep inequalities that exist in the pipelines, both in K-12 and in post-secondary education. And for us in higher education, and I certainly have had many conversations with Dr. Savoy about this, the question remains, will we be a place that erases the deficiencies and the gaps that exist that come to us, or will we be a place that exacerbates that? We have to stand firm to say we are going to do all we can to meet students where they are and to ensure that they have that opportunity to move forward. Educational equality, as you know, in this community is a threat to a vibrant economy, because a vibrant economy must have well-trained talent. And educational inequality, as you know, is a threat to a vibrant democracy, because a vibrant democracy requires people who are educated and engaged and informed. And so I applaud you for choosing opportunity today and for recognizing that it's not enough. It's not enough for those of us in this room to use our privilege to have a credential of value and have that credential of value for our children. It's just not enough. We have to ensure that everyone, young and young at heart, has the same opportunity. And so when they thrive, we thrive. And so we have to use our privilege and our voice and our commitment and our work to make a difference for those who have been left out, regardless of who they are and where they are. So the credential is the currency for today and tomorrow. It is not a luxury, it is a necessity. I'm sure you all have quoted, heard about, or read so many of the Georgetown Center reports. They do an excellent job, Tony Carnevale and his team, on talking about and thinking about how education and workforce come together. One of the reports that's often cited to this question of, is a credential worth it, is the recent Georgetown report that was done to look at jobs that were created after the recession. 11.6 million jobs created. 11.5 million of those went to individuals with a credential post-high school. So does the credential matter? The credential of value? Yes, it does. But we have to ensure that students have the opportunity and that they finish what they start. And so in Louisiana, the Georgetown Center's estimate is that in just one short year, 56% of the jobs will require something beyond high school. May not be a bachelor's for all, but will certainly be more than a high school diploma. We have to state clearly that the high school diploma is now the floor, not the ceiling, and that we aspire for more than that for our students to contribute and to be a part of this economy. So we need people with higher skills, and that means education must be attainable and accessible and affordable and equitable, and we have to think about this full continuum of early childhood education, strong a K-12 system, a very strong post-secondary system as well. Because our world is changing. Technology, automation, artificial intelligence, all these conversations are having all the time. And in this community, as you know, we saw from one of the students who had been laid off in the oil patch, we know that things are changing here as well. I read a recent Daily Advertiser article about the decline in jobs in oil and gas in the last decade. I think about 11,000 jobs. So nationwide, technology is replacing jobs and creating new jobs. And so that means when we think about educational attainment, we not only have the weighty responsibility to make sure that more people have that first credential, that they're on that path as a lifelong learner, we also have the responsibility to think about those who have to retool and retrain because their world changes. And so for so many of our citizens, the future of work is now. And that uncertainty and certainty has to be a part of the conversation that you're having about how to lift one Acadiana. We are committed to education because we know the power of it to transform lives. Students change, families change, communities change as well. Talent development in Louisiana, in America, in Acadiana is economic development. It is workforce development. It is community development as well. And education changes families. It's changed mine, and I'm sure there are so many of you who have that similar story. We know that when students, parents are educated, they are so much more likely, over 80% more likely to receive that credential as well. And so that correlation, we know, means that that ripple effect that we can have when we change that one life will ripple out into so many other lives and make our community stronger and better. We need more champions for our students, and I know that's why you're here. Whether our students are young or young at heart, we need more champions for our students. We need more advocates for this kind of work. People who understand the importance of educational attainment, not people who are asking, is education worth it, but people who are doubling down on the idea that we know it is worth it and that we have work to do to make sure that we spread the news and the opportunity broadly. I can tell you that I had that in my family, and every child needs that. Someone who believes in your unlimited potential. Because when you have that in your life, all things are possible. The torchbearer for education in my family, as some of you have heard me talk about, is my grandmother. Born in 1918, she integrated a rural school in rural Louisiana. Soon after she arrived there as a teacher in English, where she served for 30 years, her principal came to the black teachers to say to them, the time will soon come where teachers who do not have a master's degree, who are black, will be removed. It will be the next way that they ensure to keep segregation in the schools, in the core of the teachers. And so off she went to Southern University to get her master's degree. today, in 2019, we do not have master's degree teachers for every one of our students, but the fear was real, and so all of her teachers in their school went off to get that master's degree because they loved their work and they wanted to make sure they had the opportunity to serve those students. And so when she passed away at 94 years young, so many students came as a testimony to her to talk about how she made a difference in their lives. Students who said, my self-talk was that I couldn't do it. I wouldn't amount to much. Nobody in my family had done school. Or successfully graduated high school, successfully graduated college. But your grandmother said to me, you can do it. And because she believed, they believed, and they moved forward in their lives. And so her encouragement, her belief in her students made a difference. And every one of us in this room can raise our hand and speak to the person who did that for us, who was that game changer, who said to us, you can do it. You are going to do something amazing. And so we have to make sure that more of our students have that opportunity. And so I went off to college, excited about the work and eager to make a difference. Unlike Dr. Savoy, I actually went to class. I studied. He has always gotten away with it because of his charm and wit. And while I did not graduate summa cum laude, I know he graduated thank you laude. And his mother was very happy to see him get across that stage. But I know when I went to college, I was mindful of the fact that I stepped onto a campus as a college student where my grandparents could not enroll, because LSU was not open to Black students in their day. And so in May, when I had the opportunity to address the LSU graduates as commencement speaker in the very room where I graduated, I reflected on the fact that my grandfather, who was extremely proud of me, did not attend my commencement. And he said to me, the pain and the injustice is too much. I will not go where I'm not welcome. And so that injustice, that fact that opportunity does not exist for all, has become my why I do what I do, why I'm committed to this work, why I wake up every day thinking about this issue, why this work matters. It's my why, and I know it's part of your why too. Because your path has been blessed because someone has said to you, you can do it. And because your work has become more focused and more intentional because you have seen what happens when others have not had what you have had. And we always say, but for the blessings that we have, there goes I. Every time we see people who do not have that opportunity. And so for this community to rally to say, that is not acceptable. That we know that talent has no zip code, but opportunity does, and we're going to change that in Acadiana, speaks to your focus and your commitment and your passion for this work. And so when I heard that you were adopting an attainment goal, that you were rallying the troops in this community to think about how to make this happen, I knew that I had to be a part of this conversation. But I will say that the power is not in the numbers, in the goal setting itself. The power is in the change that will occur because we have talked about this commitment. The power comes because we stand in the future together to say, what does 2025 look like? And what do we want 2025 to look like? So when you stand in the future and you map the inequalities and the challenges, and you map the opportunities and the assets, then you can step out of that and then develop a plan that allows you to get there. So the power is in the education and the innovation and the collaboration, not just because we have a number, because we all know that we cannot speak it into existence. It will take all of us working together, thinking about resources and collaboration and commitment to get this work done. And if I know anything about this community, a community of thinkers and doers who are committed, I know that you will get there. Because I know you understand the power of this work and that failure for you is not an option. And we are standing right here with you. The Board of Regents just adopted an attainment goal of 60% by 2030 for the state. And while we are very focused on setting good policy and advocating for resources and aid and making sure that we are setting the table for good work, we at the Board of Regents don't graduate one student. The power of the work happens in communities. And one thing I do know about this community is that you understand how to get things done. And you also know, I'm certain from doing your homework, that communities across the country have walked this path. In Louisville, in Tulsa, in Dayton, in Austin, communities have come together and rallied around an attainment goal and put together their dashboard and their teams, workforce and education, working together to make it happen. So it is a recipe for success. It is proven, it has worked, but it will take a commitment and a long, heavy lift. There is no magic wand to erase inequality in America. If we could do it, we would. But we have to have that steady commitment to this work to make sure that we are getting it done. Let me also say that I appreciate Jamila being here, seeing Jason and I think Adam on the video, because the other thing that it says to us that I think we have to think about is we have to recognize that there are honor in all pathways. We do not have a one-size-fits-all student in America, in Acadiana, so we should not promote a one-size-fits-all measure of success. So whether you start with a certificate, certification, an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, multiple paths can get you there. And we have to continue to lift the idea that there are lots of ways to get to that place of success, and that it is really not a destination, but a journey, continuing to be lifelong learners along the way. And so I think we have to, all of us, talk about the honor in all pathways. For a long time in America, as you know, the bachelor's degree was defined as the only measure of success. And so we said to students who did not start at a four-year institution, why are you doing that? We thought you were smarter than that. You can do better than that. And then the pendulum has swung, and now we have community college system. We have phenomenal leaders who are doing that work, technical college work. And there are all sorts of credentials and badges and certificates and industry-based certifications that exist today. And so we have to think about quality credentials, work-relevant credentials, but that there are multiple paths to get there. And we have to support students along that journey. The other thing I would say is that as we think about this work, you are uniquely suited. You have a strong community. You're pursuing a proven approach. You have a very strong relationship between post-secondary education leaders, between K-12 and higher education leaders, a strong business community commitment. And I know from multiple states that I have visited or worked in that public-private partnerships win the day. And so when we think about how to get this work done, we don't have to do it alone. When we bring the anchor stores of education and business together and the community to talk about how to map strategies and structures that can make a difference, we can get there for our students. But we begin with this assumption. The assumption is the high school diploma is now the floor, not the ceiling. And so how do we build systems and structures that help students to get there? And we have to caution against this. When people say if only the students were faster or better or smarter, we could do it. The fact of the matter is these are our kids. And so we meet them where they are, we bring them to where they need to be. This is about structure and system improvement. Yes, we are making sure that students have what they need and we pour into them, but we have to set that expectation. We have to make sure that we're thinking about all of the students that it will take to get there. The other thing that I will say from visiting with one of the TED Talk leaders about what it takes to meet this goal. So many reports have talked about the fact that if you graduate every student, we talk a lot about high school dropouts. If you graduate every student, you won't get there. If you graduate all of the students who are in college, you won't get there. In Louisiana, over 200,000 students. If you add the private institutions, we educate about 240,000 students. We graduate about 40,000 students a year. In higher education, we graduate about 40,000 students a year in K-12. But if we graduate all of them, we improve our retention rates and our graduation rates and our dropouts, we still won't get there. So we have to think about our adults, our returning adults. Over 1 million people in Louisiana have a high school diploma or less that are working age, working poor. So how do we assist them as well? So it's not a traditional model. It has to be a broad, innovative model. We have to think about our subpopulations, adults, minority students, rural students, low-income students, and we have to ask the question, who are we leaving behind? And how do we improve the plight of those individual students if we really want to get there? Because it's not just about doing better with the students we have, but opening the door to the students that we do not currently have. That is how you increase opportunity for all. And so your success matters to our Louisiana, to our America. Your success, your work, your commitment. And we will be supporting and watching and talking about what is happening in one Acadiana, for all of the parishes and all the business leaders and education leaders, community leaders, K-12, higher education, who are at the table. And since I'm thinking about and talking briefly about success, I'll mention one more thing and then I'll stop and answer your questions. Yesterday I was in Virginia for a 2-day meeting talking about quality credentials and the full range of credentials. And at lunch, because we were in Virginia, we had an opportunity to have a conversation about the Amazon HQ2 win for the communities in Virginia. And so they came in to talk a little bit and share some of the conversation, and of course everybody was on the edge of their seat wanting to take it all in. And so what we heard from the local economic developer in northern Virginia was that the company came in and basically said, we're looking for diversity and inclusion. And they said, we have that. We have over 100 languages in our high school. And they said, we want a deep dive in your educational information, a deep dive in the information about who you are in your community. And so the information that they asked for, birth rates and population, the amount of STEM education occurring in elementary school, the SAT score for every high school, demonstrated partnerships between K-12 and higher education, pipelines of internships and apprenticeships and how students move forward. All of that was part of their conversation. And while they were thrilled to win 25,000 employees, part of the HQ2, what I was impressed with was how they won. They did tax breaks, yes, but their big package was an educational investment in their own people and their community. All of education will benefit. K-12 will benefit. Higher education will benefit. And Virginia Tech was there too, and they said, our part of our proposal included K-12. And we're going to build an innovation campus focused on graduate education in Northern Virginia. But guess what? The community has decided to build a K-12 campus with us. And so, quoting the Virginia Tech person on yesterday, we will do K to PhD innovation in one location. All of that work, all of that vision, diversity, equity, innovation, nested in education. And so that's the takeaway for us today. It's all nested in education. If we want a stronger economy, if we want more people working, more people paying taxes, less people needing assistance, more people who are healthy, more children who are on a path to success, it's all about education. That's the work we have to do. That's the work we are committed to do collectively. And so I thank you for your commitment and your focus. I'm delighted to be here today, to be a part of this, and to be a part of this conversation as we move forward, looking at the strategies, looking at how we move this forward, standing in the future, mapping what it can look like, because our students, young and young at heart, deserve the best that we can give them. So thank you. It says on my script, Q&A.
First, I want to thank you for always putting the needs and opportunities of students first. I've had the opportunity to hear you speak many times, several times, and I'm always struck by the fact that you never lose sight of that, and you always talk about the needs and opportunities of students in our state. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
But my question is about the older students that you talked about and how they can help us meet the goal. The 2018 legislative session, I carried a resolution to ask LCTCS to create a pilot scholarship program for older students who don't qualify for TOPS Tech because they didn't go to school right after graduation from high school.
Yes.
And so I understand we just recently got some results from that pilot program offering scholarships to these students, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the success of the pilot program, and then offer anything else that we might be able to do to tap into this segment and older adults who can help us to reach the goal of 55 by 25.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for your leadership and your service. I will say that I'm grateful for the resolution. As you, some of you may know, I've been home 7 months, so a lot of this cool work has already been underway, and I'm just jumping in and being a part of it. But Chairwoman Landry is correct. There is much work to do to ensure the affordability of educational opportunities for adults. They are the population that I hear from most often to say, there's no scholarships for us, there's no assistance for us, we're struggling with family obligations in a full life, right? We're trying to balance education with life. How do we do that? So my understanding from the initial review of the pilot is that it's been very successful. And no surprise, because adults who have limited time and money are on it. Right? They come, they do their homework, they read, they want to get what they can out of it right away. And so I do think that this pilot and another pilot that's just about to start, the Go Grant pilot that allows for additional dollars to be shared to support students in short-term certificates that are not Pell eligible, will probably also have good results. And what does it say to us? It says that we really have to think about how do we finance the pathways that we know work. How do we make sure that it's affordable? Because if it's not affordable, it's not attainable. And so cobbling that together will be important for us. Another piece of legislation that I've inherited is the responsibility to do a comprehensive financial aid plan by next year. And so we will look at that, and we will think about aid to finance education, not just traditional financial education, not just traditional financial aid. So when we think about financial aid, we think about TOPS, Pell, Go Grant, institutional aid, mom and dad, loans. But what we may not think about is TANF and SNAP, and child care credits, and WIOA, and all of these resources, federal, state, and local, can bridge a student to a credential. And so I do think that we have to think about this broadly. But long story made short, it's working. It's important, and we have to think about how to do more to help our adults, for sure. Thank you.
Hi, Holly Bookie. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
I appreciate you sharing about your grandmother, and I also appreciate the vision that's wrapped up in this initiative in general. I will say, though, I visited with a principal, and we had a conversation about the community where this principal serves. And the fact that prosperity is not something that is relayed to the students, like a vision for prosperity or a vision for difference. And I don't think that we have to convince anyone in this room that this is the right work to do. I'm really proud of representing a community that's taken the initiative to do this work together. But I think the question is, and I'm curious as to the extent to which you've seen this in other communities, is how do we then share that vision? How do we help students? Because in the students that I've encountered in my career, it's those who didn't have a vision, those who haven't been given that kind of support who really struggle. But when you have a vision, when there's something that you're aiming for, then you're looking towards it, you're trying to figure out what it'll take to get there. And so I'd just like to hear from you, how do we bring other people along? This room is great, and I think it's a wonderful start. How do we bring other people along? How do we support a vision of prosperity for our entire community?
Thank you so much for your work with Missy and for the question. First of all, I will say you are right that this is not about a room full of people who have degrees talking about how to help people who don't have degrees. We have to have an approach of nothing about us without us, which means we have a responsibility to step into communities that are struggling and understand what's happening there. And I'll give you an example in Colorado. We were working on erasing equity gaps. And so I had specific conversations with Native American population, African American population, and Hispanic population to talk about these issues. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? How can we help? What do we need to do? And I expected to walk into the room, my bias, hearing people say, if you can make it affordable and you can improve academic preparation, we're off to the races. What I heard was Native American population, students, families saying, we didn't have to go to college, right? And if we send our children to college, they don't come back or they don't come back Native. So you don't recognize our culture, you westernize our students, why do we need to do that? Other communities have said, our students are vital to our family, and you don't understand that going to college to get a credential is a family decision, not an individual student decision. And so if my grandparents didn't need it and I don't need it, then why does my child need it? So what I have to say is, I'm not trying to push my value on you, but the world has changed. So this is not your grandfather's economy, it is today's economy. And so we want everyone to have that opportunity. So I do think that good listening and conversation is important. And I learned firsthand that my expectation with my bias when I walked in was not at all what I heard. So I do think when you look at the survey data nationally, we ask families, minority families, adults, do you want something better? The answer is off the charts, yes. Do you value college? Off the charts, yes. But most people think it's unattainable, unaffordable, and not for me. And so that's the work that I think we have to do. We have to have those conversations to make sure there's a vision. And the vision starts in K-12, right? So we get students, many students, I guess the average age 28, 26. And when I talk to students at community colleges and technical colleges, and when I talk to students in prison education, they say, this happened, or that happened, or I struggled, or I got passed over, or couldn't afford childcare, and so I came back. So the question is, how do we make sure they make the most of that first opportunity and not have to do all the struggle to get to the second, third, and fourth opportunity? So yes, it can be done. It requires community conversations. It certainly requires a strong K-12 partnership and setting expectations early for our kids. One other thing I will say, my daughter is now 17. When she was taking the third grade exam, whatever the accountability exam is in third grade, she said to me, Mom, I have to go to bed early. I have to have a good breakfast tomorrow. And I said, really, why is that? She said, well, I'm taking this exam, you know, about this leap or whatever it was. And I said, oh, tell me about that. And you know what she said? It's important that I do well on this exam because I won't get in the college of my choice. Now, when you're taking the third grade exam, and I haven't said that to you, that means you're hearing it from your teachers and your school, this expectation that it's a big deal to take this exam. And so what do we say to our kids? And who's saying it to them? All along the way, we need to have them hearing, you can do it, it's important, this is an opportunity that you should not miss.
So first, I want to say this is the second time I've heard you speak, and both times I've been so moved, and I appreciate so much how you understand the core problem and the core challenges. You're not afraid to get up there and say it and challenge all of us to make better education for all of our students. I want to thank you for that, first of all. And second of all, you talked about the technology industry, jobs of the future, changing landscapes. And as we know, we have a rapidly growing technology industry in Louisiana and here in Lafayette. And I wanted to ask, what changes do you foresee in higher education to prepare students for these jobs, the ones that we have now and the ones that don't even exist yet?
Thank you for that generous compliment and for the question. So one of the things that I will say is that, you know, we have to get out of our silos. And people always will ask me, you know, tell me about what you've seen in this state or that state. What do you think is really cool? What looks like next level vision for education? And I always say, one of the things that I see is this blurring of lines, right? So you have some of that here early college that you're doing, and this idea that it's not our job to get more kids to college, it's our responsibility to get more college to kids. And so when you think about kids being college and career ready in high school because they had a college and career experience in high school, that's a different structure. And so I would say that the future of that work is really how do we make sure that that kind of work-based learning, experiential learning, apprenticeships, co-ops, hands-on is happening all along the way. And I would reflect back to the Amazon question. Tell me about the STEM happening in elementary school, not in high school. Tell me about the STEM happening in elementary school. And so how do we do that? How do we cultivate innovation and think about changing the landscape for our students? I think that's very important. Our students are digital natives, right? So they will take to that if we can figure out how to support that for our students. The other thing I would say is that we are seeing a pretty robust conversation, Holly can speak to this, I'm sure, around coding and computer science. And so I just came from a state where the governor was trying to make coding or computer science a foreign language requirement for every student. So every kid would graduate high school knowing how to do that. May not be every kid is going to code, but every kid would have that experience. And so I do think we have to sort of think about what is, if we stand in the future, what are the essential skills? And then how do we make sure that we map so kids have that? Not our kids, but all kids. And what do those structures look like?
We have time for one more question.
Big responsibility. This is the last question. Kim, thank you so much for your time today and for being with us. I really appreciate the inspirational message that you've given, and I was really excited to hear in the Q&A about this comprehensive plan that's being developed that's going to look at things like child care, because that is oftentimes a barrier for returning students. And the Child Care Assistance Program has been kind of decimated in recent budget cuts. So that's good that y'all are looking at that and see it as part of a bigger picture. But what I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know how fair this is because you're the Commissioner of Higher Ed, I wanted to ask you about the very other end of the pipeline. Because one of the issues that 1A has identified is the role of school readiness. And you've talked a lot about K-12 and above that. But below K, what are we doing for our children who are already part of the pipeline, but maybe we don't think of them as being in the pipeline? Right. Because learning starts at birth, right? It goes all the way through. So what I wanted to ask you about is if you saw, what would you say are one or two key interventions for school readiness? Because we know only 40% of our kids are starting school ready to learn. That impacts them. That's what creates all the inequalities in the pipeline.
Sure.
As they advance in their school career. So what do you see as key interventions, one or two, that would impact school readiness?
So of course, if we had a magic wand, we would make sure that high quality, affordable childcare would be available to everyone, right? And that would allow more kids, all kids, to arrive having that experience that allows them to be ready. We certainly know that the research is indisputable about how early those connectors are happening in the brains of those children. And so I think that's very important. The students whose families are least likely to be college educated, or have a credential rather, are the families who are single moms, children living in poverty, staying from one place to the other. And so they don't have that structure and that focus and that sort of someone tracking along to say, how many words are we saying to that child, right? Parasol is umbrella, and every day you're on it, right? As we have done as parents with our kids. And so those kinds of things, the understanding of the importance of literacy and reading to kids, the understanding of the importance of structure and focus, the understanding of the importance of affordable child care, those are the kinds of things that matter. I will say, finally also, as we're thinking about this work, that it is shocking to me that for multiple decades we've had more women than men in college in America. And yet very few states, I don't think any state, has universal access to child care on every college campus. And so we have to ask the question, are we really committed to making sure people complete? So those are the kinds of things we have to focus on. A report came out this week from the GAO about food insecurity. How many people would think that college students are food insecure? 50% of the students have said, community colleges I believe, that at some point in their academic journey they've been food insecure. They've been housing insecure. And so these are real issues that we have to talk about because they are completion issues. They are barriers to success for students. So that's the kind of conversations, honest, tough conversations that I think we have to have when it comes to what does it take, right? We talk about social determinants of health. What are social determinants for completion of a credential? And what does it take to do that and get there? That's the kind of conversation that I think we have to have in a state that has as much opportunity as our Louisiana has and as much poverty as our Louisiana has. Thank you. All right, that does it, right?
Thank you, Dr. Wonder Reed. Can we give her one more round of applause? At this point, you have heard from business leaders, from students, from educators, and from statewide leaders like Dr. Kim Hunter Reed about the case for 55 by 25, and now is when we need your commitment. We are asking all of you and other partners across the region to commit to the vision of an equitable education system that meets the region's need for talent and offers all Acadiana residents the chance for a better life through increased educational attainment. The goal of increasing the proportion of working-age adults in Acadiana with post-secondary degrees, certificates, or other high-value credentials to 55% by 2025. And the common purpose of galvanizing business, education, civic, and community leaders and organizations in support of a shared agenda to achieve this goal.
So what does this commitment really entail to each of you? Well, for one, we're asking you to stay engaged in the cross-sector initiative by joining one or more teams aligned with our focus areas. First being kindergarten readiness, second being third grade reading, high school to college transition, and then finally credential completion. We've included some call to action cards at each of your places for you to sign up. After the summit, you'll be invited to an online engagement platform powered by a software called Basecamp.
Basecamp is a simple project collaboration tool that helps people make progress together. At our 55 by 25 Basecamp, we'll provide real-time updates on initiative activities and other resources related to our 4 goals. And the communications tool in 55 by 25 Basecamp will give you the opportunity to help drive the discussion.
For each of our focus areas, where possible, we'll seek to align with and elevate existing initiatives. We're not the experts in education, you guys are. So our goal is to really help you guys out. After all, one of our guiding principles is to acknowledge and support programs that advance the goal. Here are a few examples of some of those programs, although we know there are many, many more.
Existing programs that are advancing kindergarten readiness include the Ready Louisiana Coalition, who will be advocating for increased funding for early care and education during the 2019 legislative session, and the On Track by 5 Alliance and Volunteers of America, who administer the school readiness tax credit to support child care providers and parents.
Programs that are advancing third grade reading include the Pew Family Foundation and the Schumacher Family Foundation, who are providing philanthropic resources to support tutoring services in the LPSS Transformation Zone. The United Way Readers, who are providing much needed reading practice in conjunction with classroom teachers.
Programs that are supporting the high school to college transition include Gear Up, which prepares students to enter and succeed in post-secondary education, and Louisiana Department of Education's FAFSA Completion Initiative, which is implementing a new policy that requires high school seniors to complete the FAFSA, with Louisiana's class of 2018 ranking #1 in the nation for both FAFSA completion and percentage of growth.
And finally, programs that are advancing credential completion includes Compete Louisiana, a University of Louisiana system initiative to re-engage adults who have completed some college but did not earn a degree, to assist them with obtaining a credential of value. Work Ready U, a Louisiana community and technical college system initiative to prepare adult learners for the HiSET exam and offer other career readiness services.
This is just a small number of the many partners in the region who are already working day in and day out to improve educational attainment.
So let's give a big round of applause for all of today's speakers. Achieving success for the 55 by 25 goal will not be possible without all of us coming together for this joint commitment. With your collective leadership and support, we know that we can reach this really ambitious target. Once again, thank you for today's presenting sponsor, Acadian Companies. Thank you also to AOC for covering today's event, and the folks at UL and the Student Union for being our generous hosts. And lastly, thanks to all of you, our business leaders, education leaders, and nonprofit leaders who joined us here today. We look forward to partnering with you on this really important initiative.
At this point, while the formal part of our day is over, we're going to transition to the last action segment. And that's where we'll recognize the shared commitment from all of the partners here today to join together in support of our 55 by 25 goal. So bear with us as we bring some props over. And what we're asking is that by row, starting with this front row, that you commit to 55 by 25 by signing our banner. And then if this entire row would stay so that we could get a photograph, and then we'll go with the second row and the third row and the fourth row. So Dr. Schumacher, Ms. Rogers, and Mr. Calicott, Mr. LaCourte, you guys would start, and then this next table, and then again, as you sign, just come back around and stand for a photo. And thank you everyone for your attendance today. We have a lot of markers. We have a lot of markers, so you can sign about 7 at a time.